त्यागेश्वरं रामकृष्णं शारदा मातृरूपिणीं विवेकानन्दमाचार्यं दत्त्वा वक्ष्यामि शुद्धे योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च भैषजेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि. We kind of looked into what are yamas and niyamas. 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. And the last of the niyamas, Ishvara Pranidhana, was very important. We discussed it. It appears for 3 times in this Yoga Sutra. Of course, in the first chapter, it has a connotation of meditation or seeking grace of God, that kind of connotation. But in this second chapter, it is dedication of all our actions unto God. Sarva karmanam Ishvaro Arpanam. Ishvare Arpanam. Paramaguru Ishvare Arpanam. So, dedicating of all actions unto God. That is what this Ishvara Pranidhana means in the second chapter. And this is a very important subject. Because in Gita also we find in various chapters this particular point is emphasized. Why it becomes important is when it comes to meditation, especially the sadhakas for whom this Ashtanga Yoga is mentioned, we are beginners, and we can meditate for some time in the morning, some time in the evening, but the rest of the time we work. And when we work, our mind is tend. It is but natural that it goes out, it gets scattered. We fall prey to many temptations and all that. So that is to be avoided. Secondly, that time of work also is to be put to use, spiritual use. And that is what this Ishvara Pranidhana does. It tells us how we can avoid this mind or this time counterproductive, and at the same time make it very productive spiritually. That's what it is. Double effect, so to say. Most of our time is spent in work. So as we are working, what is the way we can still keep our spiritual progress going? Keep on progressing spiritually while we work. What is the way? And this is the way. This Ishvara Pranidhana, which is dedication of all actions unto God. That is the way by which we can be working and at the same time progressing spiritually. It doesn't tell us to give up work. Work, but work in a certain fashion. That's why there is so much emphasis given on this practice. And the practice itself consists of having this bhava, this, you can say, feeling, thought in our mind as we work, that this is the work of God. I am doing this for God. I am offering this to God. I am dedicating this work to God. Maintaining this bhava. And at the same time, not seeking anything, any personal, self-centered results out of the work. These are the 2 main aspects of this Ishvara Pranidhana. Offering all actions unto God and not seeking any selfish returns out of that work. These are the 2. Now, when we say not seeking selfish returns, it doesn't mean we shouldn't work for salary. But the point is that salary will come. While working, whether we have only money as the motive or we work for God, salary will come. It doesn't depend on our motive. And that's why this purity of motives is what's important. So we work for God. The result will come on its own. Whatever material result we are to get, we'll get either which way. But the spiritual practice is this, that we work for God. Now, it is not so easy. Though this practice appears very simple, it can be put in one or two sentences, but the returns are invaluable, so to say. The returns we get out of this practice are invaluable. It's a simple practice. And I mean, it appears simple when we hear it, but when we start practicing it, then we find that it is practically impossible to have that kind of bhava, that kind of attitude, that kind of thought in the mind all along while working. One is the work pressure, no doubt, that is there. We have because we don't work in an isolated environment, we are interacting with people, situations, so obviously there is distraction. But apart from that, there is always this forgetfulness, very habitual forgetfulness. The moment we get out of the house, the spiritual life, the God and everything is just forgotten. We kind of jump into the world as if we have nothing to do with spiritual life. So that forgetfulness comes. That is very common, natural also, because we have never trained ourselves to remember God always and all that. So the remedy that is advised is to begin with at least once in a day, you go through the entire day's happenings, what all we did, and offer all that to God along with its results, along with the doer, ourselves, everything offered to God. We begin with that practice. That is the first, so to say, step, you can say. So every day in 24 hours, either night or morning, we go through the entire day's activities and offer everything unto God. So that is how we begin. And then as we practice that, that memory, that samskara, that comes up even while working. So then we split the day in different sections or modules. And then in the beginning of it, middle if possible, at the end of every small piece of work, or at the end of every section of work, we offer everything unto God. That is how we become adept. We progress in this practice of offering all our actions unto God. Now, coming to the benefits, how does it benefit? There is not much on that front. We have to realize ourselves how we benefit from this practice. One benefit is, of course, there. As we are offering everything unto God, we are remembering God. That remembrance of God itself is a great purifier. So that remembrance of God is one benefit out of this practice. The other benefits are, when we say we are offering all this unto God, we are asserting the fact that this world belongs to God. God is the sustainer of this world. This fact we are ascertaining. We are affirming this fact that this world belongs to God. Presently, we may say, but we don't really feel that this world belongs to God. We know it is held by many people, and there are different views on that. But in Gita, there is a very hard-hitting view. But we don't go in there. So, presently, though we may say, but we don't have that kind of conviction and awareness that this world belongs to God, that every work we do, it belongs to God. We don't have that. So when we try to offer that, God's lordship, so to say, that is ascertained in our heart, that is affirmed in our heart. Now that is a step towards God. To have this awareness always that this world belongs to God. God is the creator, sustainer and destroyer of this world. So that is one benefit, you can say, or advantage or a step towards God in this practice. And when we deny any personal benefits to ourselves out of any work, that is also, it helps us to know ourselves better and better. We can put it that way. As we deny personal benefits to us from whatever work we are doing, it so to say removes layers from our own personality, our own idea about ourselves. That changes. So that is in a broad way we can say. So these are the two spiritual benefits we get from this practice. That's why this practice is emphasized throughout in Gita, in all our scriptures, and even as the commentator Vyasa said, such a person witnesses ikshamana, kshaya, the destruction of the samsara bija, of the seed of samsara. That person actually witnesses the destruction of the seed of samsara. Person who is able to dedicate all actions unto God. And amrita bhoga bhagi, he becomes a sharer of amrita, of immortality. So that is the scope where this practice can lead us to. That's why this practice is important. And this is the last of the niyamas. Then we saw that there is no sarvabhaumatva, there is no universality in the niyamas. Patanjali had talked about sarvabhauma yamas, when they are not restricted by jati, desha, kala, nimitta and all that, then that commitment of ours, that practice of ours becomes universal. But that universality is possible to be achieved only in the case of yamas. In yamas, it is not mandatory. Because see, Shuchi and all that, Swadhyaya, a Jivan Mukta may not need all that. We may not see these in the life of a Jivan Mukta, but yamas, ahimsa, asatya, asteya, these will invariably be there in the life of a Jivan Mukta. There is no violating the yamas. And hence there is no sarvabhaumatva in niyamas. There is no universality in the niyamas. These are there for aspirants. Once you cross the stage of being an aspirant, one becomes a siddha, then some of the niyamas can be violated. But yamas can never be violated. So yamas, so to say, become a test of a person's spirituality. So this is about the yamas and niyamas. The next two sutras are also important from the perspective of a sadhaka. These deal with a very common problem that we all face. Every sadhaka faces. That problem is raised here. The sutra says, vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam. Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam. Now, we understand badhanam. Badhanam means obstacle, so to say. Obstacle, badha. Obstacle or badhanam. Obstacle in the form of vitarkas. When these arise, when obstacles arise in the form of vitarkas, that is vitarka badhane, what we should do? We should do pratipaksha bhavanam. We should dwell on, or we should think opposite or contrary thoughts. Pratipaksha is viruddha, pratipaksha. That is the enemy, so to say, or contrary. So when vitarkas arise and, so to say, stop our spiritual path, we should dwell on contrary thoughts. We should think contrary thoughts. We should dwell on contrary ideas. Pratipaksha bhavanam. That is the meaning of this sutra. We have not discussed what vitarkas are, but as we have understood, just now told, these are obstacles. And in this context, these are the vitarkas which are, so to say, perverse thoughts or opposite thoughts to the practice of yamas, niyamas and other yogangas. Yama, niyam and other yogangas, these prescribe for us a certain pattern of life, you can say. When we take all of them together, they set for us a pattern of life. We will not hurt others. We will not even mentally hurt others. We will not have thoughts about or speak or act untruth. Like that, all the aspects of our life are guided by these yamas and niyamas. As I said, they set a pattern for us. Now, when due to whatever circumstances, because we interact with the different situations, different kinds of people, what happens? A thought comes to our mind, an impulse comes to our mind, which, so to say, violates one of the tenets of the yogangas. The yogangas are consist, there are 8, plus then yama niyama themselves have 5. So any of these, a thought which violates these, such a thought, such an impulse comes to our mind as we interact in the world due to various situations. It is very natural. And our own samskaras. Everyone will have one's own weaknesses. These will differ. These vitarkas, their strength will differ from person to person. For in some person, one vitarka may be very strong, in another may be strong. So we have to figure that out ourselves. But a thought comes, an impulse comes to violate the tenets, the way of life, the pattern of life set by yoga. That is a vitarka. So vitarka is viruddha vichara. It's an opposite thought, opposite to the prescribed thought pattern of the yogis, of the yoga. Vyasa gives in detail he gives. And next sutra will deal more extensively about what are these vitarkas and all that. But Vyasa in this sutra itself he has told, see, himsa etc. are vitarkas. Himsa, somebody has hurt me, I feel like giving back. Now himsa doesn't necessarily mean that we saw earlier. It doesn't necessarily mean hurting physically, hurting verbally, wishing ill luck, getting angry. These are all forms of himsa. Somebody has hurt me. Now there is a reaction in my mind of himsa, however mild it is, however subtle it is, but it is there. And this himsa is a violation of ahimsa that has been prescribed, that has been set, which I have accepted as a set of rules for my life. I have accepted it. Now here is a thought that violates it. It is perverse, so to say. That is opposite to what I have accepted to be my guiding principle, so to say. So this vitarka comes. You see, this is what makes spiritual life most challenging. Because two things. One is only for a spiritual person, these are vitarkas. For others, they don't bother. They just get carried away by these and live their life. They are not bothered. They may even try to defend their weaknesses, whatever. We are not talking about them. We are talking about yogis. We are talking about sadhakas. So first thing is we have to be honest. In this also there are stages. Sometimes we are just swept off our feet. We don't get chance to identify and control these vitarkas. They just sweep us off our feet. Nothing can be done at that point about that. When whole thing happens so fast, you don't have time. But at other times, we become aware that, okay, something is wrong with me. I am getting a thought that violates the yoga marga, the dictates of yoga. I am getting that thought. So if we are lucky, we will get this alarm bell, so to say, red flag will raise in our mind. Otherwise, it doesn't. Many times it doesn't. In spite of our wanting to, it doesn't. It just sweeps us off our field. We react, we violate the dictates of yoga. So these are the two situations, so to say. One is where we are aware, and one is where we unknowingly violate. This unknowingly violation, we feel helpless, and at that point there is nothing we can do about it. But as I said, Swadhyaya is there, introspection. So that is where Swadhyaya comes. Later, when we introspect how we spent our day, what we did, we understand that we violated certain principles, we violated certain commitments that we had made. And then it is a long-term practice, but we have to dwell on the negative impacts of such actions which violate yama, niyama and yogangas. So we have to deeply contemplate on the evils of violating the yama, niyama and other yogangas. This is a matter of samskaras. See, these vitarkas come because of samskaras. Some samskaras are very strong, so the vitarkas will be very powerful, and that's why they don't give us any opportunity to manage them, so to say. But the only way out, as we understand, is when we are not caught in that fever, so to say, to generate the thoughts, to inform ourselves about the demerit, about the evils, about the defects of such vitarkas. When we are not caught in that fever, when we are doing that, we are generating a samskara, and we are, so to say, weakening these samskaras of vitarka. Now that is, as I said, it's a long-term process. But that's the only way. We want to control anger, we cannot control it. When we are not angry, we have to think deeply. We have to plant that seed in our own mind about how evil, how counterproductive this anger is. Now we have to convince ourselves, not once. Convincing once is not going to help, because this samskara of anger is there for life after life. So we have to repeatedly, whenever we get angry subsequently, we have to keep on telling this to ourselves, convincing ourselves. So this samskara of the defects of anger, it has to sink. When the samskara of defects of anger sinks, that will control the samskara of anger. And that's how, that next time it will be less powerful. This was by the way of how to deal with these very powerful vitarkas. And so this himsa, or there is greed, there is desire to speak untruth for some greed, for some reason. There is a violation of brahmacharya, violation of aparigraha. You see something, you hear something, and just fall for it. Aparigraha is what we have committed ourselves to. We don't need it, but we just fall for it. We want it. So, Gita tells us that dhyato vishyan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate. The ladder, so to say, that whole thing is there. So we have to be careful about that. And of course, Vyasa gives another remedy to it, and Patanjali himself is giving a remedy, which we see in our next class. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.